Hey, deserving listeners. So I sat down to watch the reunion today because it was scheduled to come out today on Wednesday. And then I eventually realized that it doesn't come out until later this evening. So instead of me just staring at the screen until it starts, I thought I would just type in Love is Blind on TikTok and watch whatever comes up and react to it.
Did you ever need that EpiPen?
I did not need the EpiPen.
All right, so this first video is on the TikTok channel called Extra TV, and they're asking, did you need that EpiPen? And he says, I did not need that EpiPen. All right, let's continue watching.
And if I did need the EpiPen, I wouldn't have told her because I don't need to make that ego any bigger.
Oh. It seemed like there was this narrative that like you would switch. The minute you saw what Jess looked like, you would be out the door.
Yeah, that was the narrative, and I did not think that was what would happen. I think that's a massive oversimplification. It was also, I think, edited in to kind of make it look like that. I think they edited out moments where he was giving context to what he might be saying. But I don't know. It's possible, but I don't think people are that simple. I think those kind of storylines lend itself to the simplicity that sometimes people will interpret people's behavior. But, I think that when people commit and get engaged, their commitment is not that fragile that they would see someone that even they had a connection with and say, va va voom, well, I take this ring off and throw it. Like, it's not likely. It's possible. And we kind of saw that with Jeremy, but I don't think Jimmy and many of the others on the show would do that. Now, might someone say later on after the breakup and the emotions settle down, maybe I'll strike things up with that other person? Yeah, we've seen that before. Like with Johnny from last season and what was his name? Was it Chris?
Were you that interested in finding out what she looked like, just maybe out of curiosity, or were you?
It also kind of assumes that everyone is obsessed with how photogenic someone is. And I don't think we have evidence that Jimmy is like that. Maybe he is, but most people aren't.
Do something with Jess down the road.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily wanting to pursue something with her. I was engaged, so like that was the least of my concern. But I did love Jess, and I had really, really strong feelings with her, and I was extremely curious to see what she looked like. I mean, naturally, we're human. I think we go into that.
That lends itself to believability. Sometimes people will go overboard trying to convince, and then they go too far. And I'm thinking, well, like when Jess herself was saying, well, when I said about the EpiPen, I was just talking about how he missed out on my personality or something like that. I think she said that a couple times, and it's possible, but I think it's perfectly fine if she was to say, I find that men respond to me in a certain way, and I thought that I was hurt that Jimmy rejected me. It was devastating to me, and I got a little ugly there at the end because I was really, really hurt. I'm not saying it's okay, but I kind of wanted to stick it to him, I guess, and that's what I resorted to. I don't know. It was pretty. She did kind of say that, but she also said, anyway, for him to say, yeah, I was really curious. It's natural because it's natural.
Me following her, unfollowing her, going private. Point of all that is she took time to go through my Instagram, look at what my exes looked like, and it's not like she was interrogating me before I had a chance to interrogate her.
Were you ever scared that you would be the bad guy? Like even just when you were signing up for the process, like
100% was scared I'd be the bad guy. I was absolutely salting in the pods, and the bad guy is always the dude that's the heartbreaker, and unfortunately I had to be the heartbreaker. So yeah, it's
Is that true? That the bad people are the heartbreakers? If we start with season 1, everyone wanted to be with Barnett. I'm sure there was a faction of people that hated him, but there's always a faction that hates everybody. I'm sure there's a faction that hates Amy and Johnny, which might be hard to believe, but I've seen stuff like that. And then who else was being sought after? Is that all that we have? I think that's it. And then season 2, we had Shane. well, he was a bad guy because of the things that happened. So I don't think just because you're the heartbreaker. And then we had Mallory, right? So Mallory, Sal, and Jarrett were both after Mallory. I don't think the consensus was that Mallory was a horrible person. Cole had both Zeneb and Colleen after him. Again, I think it's Cole's behavior that caused a lot of people to be upset at him. You had, was Bartise kind of? Right, because I think Raven was sort of after Bartise. Again, it's more their behavior. I don't think Bartise was hated, but there were some people who weren't fond of him. From the Seattle season, you had Micah, who had both Paul and Kwame. Again, the behavior. You had Jackie, who had Josh and Marshall. Again, behavior. You had Zach, who had Irina and Bliss. So I think everyone, for the most part, likes Zach, even in the pods, I think. Yeah. So I don't think that having multiple people after you, I don't blame Jimmy for saying such a thing. At the very least, it would be rational if you're on the show to wonder, if I break someone's heart and they're really sad, that people could hate me. I would hope that they would worry primarily about the person that they're hurting. And if he was concerned about that, he really flubbed it, because the way he broke up with Jess was, I commented on it at the time. It was so lackluster. But I think it's because he shuts down, not because he doesn't have a heart.
It's not fun, but I know I'm a good guy. I know the people around me, that the friends and family that actually know me as a person, they all love me and they think very highly of me. I'm very confident who I am as a person. And so
it sounds a little pompous, but I imagine where that's coming from is he has absorbed a lot of negativity. It's overwhelming. And I've heard from my contact on the show that a lot of the cast are in therapy, at least in part, because of, they've been preparing and then getting treatment during all of the hatred and all the bullying and all the threats and the misunderstandings and all that, So I think that's where that's coming from, that's a mantra that he's been saying, and maybe he's getting help with that in therapy. I don't know. It sounded pompous, but I don't remember him being that style of pompous on the show. It doesn't mean he's not narcissistic, but that's my assumption, is that he's saying that, like a couple of years from now, he won't need to have that front and center in his mind, because it's unrelenting what they go through. I've been through a tiny bit of what they go through, and it's soul crushing. It's just the worst.
Luckily, the boys got some thick skin to deal with this, but I felt the whole time I was there, I definitely felt like I might have been, to answer your question.
All right, so this next video is, I believe it's Brittany's TikTok, and she is standing there and it says, "Don't tell anyone." Okay. All right, well, that was fast. So what does that mean? I don't know. I think this video has millions of views, by the way. It has almost 1 million likes alone. Anyway, so comments are saying what is happening? They're friends. I'm sure that's all that's happening. I don't know. Maybe they are together. And maybe because at the reunion they're back together. Somehow I doubt it. Also, I imagine that, because I'm watching this around the time of the reunion. So they could be all in the same town filming the reunion. And so he came over for a drink, or they're chatting. I don't know. Anyway, it's fun. I guess it's good to see that at least they're friendly enough to make a TikTok together. All right, so in my searching for Love is Blind on TikTok, this one came up pretty high on the list, lots of views. It is on the TikTok called Sack a Meow. Let's watch. Looks like that is Chelsea. Is that Jimmy?
Look at this. Oh my God.
Okay. So that's interesting. It looks like they're either as friends, having. I like how people just assume a lot of things, or they dated after the show, which wouldn't be unusual. But given what we saw, it would be strange. I think he certainly didn't ask for that in the edit, and she was pretty devastated. So, I guess that's encouraging. I don't know. I don't know. Just seeing them at dinner, it could go a lot of different ways. It's notable. It's interesting. All right. So, apropos, the next video that comes up is on Chelsea's own TikTok. So let's watch this.
Hear me out. Hear me out. Okay. You guys have every right to have your opinions because let's be honest. Woof. Imagine spending the year just really working on yourself, finding those inner demons, and really becoming the woman you've always wanted to be. Sitting with, hardships in your life that you've really never really sat with before, and then having to relive it.
So I don't know, but we have this word, this concept in my field called incongruency or incongruent presentations. It's a part of a mental status exam or an initial exam that we will do formally at times, but it's also something that therapists pay attention to. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's a dimension of communication and assessment that is important to pay attention to for a variety of reasons. And there's a lot of causes that a client would present in what we would suspect is incongruent. We could never know, but for some people, they will be presenting something that you would expect to produce a particular affect or display of emotion. And yet their display is incongruent with the material, incongruent with what they probably are feeling, or they're feeling a feeling and showing that feeling that is incongruent with what they're saying. We can never know for sure. It's just our own vague opinion. It's not a scientific thing. It's not like diagnosing a broken bone in the doctor's office or something, as you could just see it with an x-ray. But it's something to pay attention to. And I've been talking about how Chelsea will present this way at times when at the beginning of the fights with Jimmy, I would come to learn that she would sometimes present, and then afterwards as well, when they would quote unquote make up, we would see her pain during the fights. And before and after, she would be referring to the same material, but she would have this, it was toned down from this a little bit. When people are on TikTok, they're going to try to come across as pleasant enough or something. I guess that's the style. But on the show, she would have this kind of cutesy voice, even though I suspected over time that underneath that was tremendous pain and worry. The same pain and worry that we saw when we saw it more obviously. And I began to wonder, I can't know if any of this is accurate, but I began to wonder if she was forced to be that way or she developed it as a coping style or something, as a way of trying to be pleasant as she's trying to communicate something, or she's trying to trick herself into thinking that everything's fine when it's not. It's sort of like, well, there's that meme of that one guy who's like, he has gray hair and his like short gray hair, right? And he's like smiling, but his eyes are saying something different. We've all been there, right? You're in a weird situation, so you're just trying to act like everything's fine, and you can't really pull it off because the emotion is too intense. I don't know what's happening with her, but I'm reminded of that, and I think it's happening right now. Now, maybe that's what everyone does on TikTok, because there's not a lot of, or there's hatred of people, maybe particularly women, that are more authentic and real. I don't know. But what she's talking about right now, I'm guessing for a lot of people, cast members and others, is causing a lot of pain and anxiety for her, that she's being attacked. I have seen it, which is immoral, that people would attack her. They're watching a TV show, and I hope people see that at the very least, she is suffering. She's not like, he, I won, right? I don't know. even if you don't understand psychology, I would imagine that you would clearly see someone who was struggling, someone in pain. And even if you're thinking, oh, she's so insecure, well, do you think she chose to be insecure? So there's that. Also, she got dumped kind of harshly, I would say. There's worse ways to dump someone, but he led with, where are you? And she's like, yeah, I want to marry you. Well, I don't want to marry you. Me and my wife were talking about it. We're like, why would he do that? She said that maybe he was hoping that she would be a no in that moment, and then he could either reciprocate or just let her break up with him, that kind of thing. And then when she was indicating that she was all in, or at least mostly in, then he had to actually disclose that he doesn't want to be with her. So on one hand, you think, well, jerk face. But on the other hand, given the scenario, I can see someone in his shoes making that choice. Because even if you think it's altruistic, that I know if I break up with her, it's really going to hurt her. I don't want to do that. The two of us have been kind of standoffish this whole week. It kind of sounded like that, right? Maybe she doesn't want to be with me. And so instead of me dumping her on camera, I'll give her a chance to dump me, because maybe for Jimmy, he's like, I think I'm 51% sure she's a no right now. So that I could save a lot of hurt feelings if she's the one that's allowed to say that on camera. Also, it'll save me the responsibility of breaking this thing up. If I were a little birdie on his shoulder as he was making that choice, if that was the choice, I would say, but what happens if she says yes? Then you will have, of all the different scenarios, right? Yeah, if she's a no, then it would be best if she were able to say that no, because you might believe that you're able to handle that more than she would. Okay, that's nice. But what if she says yes? So of all the different quadrants of her going first and saying no, or her going first saying yes, you probably should pick the middle option, which is that you go first and you risk denying her the opportunity of saying no, but you also avoid the possibility of her saying yes, and then you just quickly following up with no, because that could come across as pretty hurtful. So, so I think what she's talking about, let's rewind it, but I think what she's talking about here is that people have been attacking her, and it just, and people are commenting on her TikTok against her. I don't understand. I just don't understand. Like, what if the edit is accurate, which I can't know, then she could be quite vulnerable. And everyone's vulnerable, but she could be quite vulnerable. And I don't want her to feel any worse about herself. People have enough reasons on these shows to feel terrible and humiliated and rejected. She got dumped. Oh, it just breaks my heart.
Hear me out. Okay. You guys have every right to have your opinions, because let's be honest, woof. Imagine spending
I think she's saying woof about herself, right?
the year just really working on yourself, finding those inner demons, and really becoming the woman you've always wanted to be. Sitting with, hardships in your life that you've really never really sat with before.
Yeah, it did look that way. That fits with my loose conceptualization, my loose hypothesis about what was happening. Okay, so that'll do it for the free portion of this video. I'm thinking that with these kind of one-off videos that I will just make them mainly for the members of this channel, because I want to reward them for, in a very real way, supporting and making it possible for me to make these videos. So if you want to watch this full video, become a member of the YouTube channel by clicking below, and then you'll get access to a different video. That's the whole video once you do that. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.